Um, Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Streets and Transportation Committee meeting of the City of Rehoboth Beach. It is Thursday, April 20th, and I call this meeting to order at 3 o'clock. I'm going to do a roll call of the committee members. David Diefendorfer,
Here.
Donna Maybury,
Here.
John Geiger is absent, Elise Moore is absent, David Mann is absent, and Chris Galanti.
Here.
And the chair is here. We have a quorum and can conduct business. Meeting minutes were sent out in draft form via email for the meeting held on February 16th, 2023. Does anyone have any comments or revisions to those? With none being heard, I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes. Going once, going twice.
Motion to approve? Go ahead.
All right, we have a motion to approve by Chris Galanti. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, and we have a second by Donna. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? And the meeting minutes are approved. First, I'm going to rearrange some of the agenda items on new business when we get to it. But I would like to thank and just make known that we've got City Secretary Ann Womack here helping us run the meeting efficiently and having it on video and recorded for those watching live. And Kevin Williams, Public Works Director, is here, as he usually is, and we thank you both for being here and helping us move the meeting along. First, old business is we had made some recommendations to the city manager regarding silent policemen. I have not had an update from him specifically recently. Mr. Williams, do you know if there's any update on the progress of those?
Yeah, so they've ordered the silent policeman. He has a couple on hand already. He's finishing up, I think, the parking lot out here. They put the bollards or the concrete barriers. I think it's next up after that to start putting those in.
Okay, so within the next week or two?
Sure, before the season, for sure, yeah.
Excellent, thank you. I'm glad we were able to get that done swiftly. Any questions or comments on those silent policemen going in? And I, just to update or make everyone a reminder, there's one at Pennsylvania and Surf. Was it two at Hickman and one at Norfolk?
Yeah, you're testing my memory as well. The numbers changed a little bit. Locations were the same, but if there was a piano key crosswalk in place, then it gets one and it goes in the crosswalk. On the street, I think it was Norfolk or Rodney down that end, there was not a crosswalk, so we'll do like we did at State Road and put the two at each side, and you take the crosswalk reference off of the sign itself, but it'd be one on each side as opposed to the one in the crosswalk at, I think it was Hickman.
Okay, excellent.
If they're already in place, they're at Norfolk.
Oh, maybe he got out there today then, or yesterday.
But there's two down there. What street is that?
That's
No, Newcastle was the last one down. Yeah.
All right, excellent. Well, the ones we've recommended are going in soon, and that's great to hear. Any other questions or comments on that? I'm going to move item E to the beginning of new business, and this is a discussion of handicap and reserved parking at Grenoble Place for physical therapy appointments. And we've got a member of the public here, and I'm going to go up to the computer and see if I can pull up Google Maps. But Amelia, would you like to come up and just state your name and talk about what you're asking for?
My name is Amelia Canar. I'm a property owner on Newcastle Street Extended, and I own the Elite Physical Therapy that's on the boardwalk, which most of you know. We have 2 spots that the city was kind enough to allocate for elite PT patients about 2 or 3 years ago, which has been extraordinarily helpful. We also have 2 handicap spots, which they also widened at the time because we have a lot of caregivers that bring their, our patients neurologically challenged, people from the acres that, our former lifeguards, that have been part of the community that we keep mobile and in their homes. Last summer, because we treat right there, we noticed that a lot of times those handicap spots, people who have out-of-state tags, and I'm not even sure how handicapped they are. Of course, I'm super sensitive to it, but they're unloading all their coolers and they're doing all their thing and they're staying there all day. What I was hoping you guys would consider is letting Elite put up there for Elite PT patients handicap. Of course, they're going to feed the meters. We all support feeding the meters, so revenue wouldn't be compromised. It's just accessibility. There would be times that in around 11 o'clock hour when these handicapped people are up with their caregivers, I'll have 3 or 4 cars out there unloading their patients. So my hope would be that you guys would be able to allow us to have those 2 handicap spots specific for elite PT patients because they come in and out. They're there usually an hour and a half. The issue with Grenoble is that with the all-day parking, not so much last summer, but the summer before, we had a lot of day trippers that would come and unload everything and then just stay there all day. Originally, I'd hoped maybe that you guys would consider 2-hour parking, which I understand is heavy with labor as far as enforcing it. But if I could have those 2 handicap spots and the 2 that the city's been kind enough to give us, and then there's one more, a 5th spot that's right in front of the entrance. If we could have one more that could be allocated for Elite, which would give us 5 spots, especially for July and August, would be extraordinary. We have
And can you pull up?
Go ahead. We have a lot of, we have equipment in there that were one of a kind in Sussex County, like the Ultra G, where a patient can get in partial weight bear. So Dr. Patrick Kane refers a lot of patients who are non-weight bearing and transitioning to partial weight, full weight, that they're coming in the day after surgery to get treated per his protocols. And if they have to park wherever, it's just going to be very challenging for the community. We do make an effort to adjust to the parking by starting at 6:30 a.m. and we're done at 7. So we get a lot of the locals in and out before 10.
When you say you're done at 7, you mean 7 at night?
Well, we usually start at 7, but in the season we start at 6:30 just to give the locals an opportunity to come in, get treated, and be out timely before 10. But all of them, we all pay the meters. There's a constant in and out, but the meters are being supported and paid for.
So you have 2 spots currently that's for Elite only, then there are 2. Sorry about that. So you have 2 parking spots that are for Elite only now, and there are 2 handicap spots?
Those first 2, I do have it on my phone if that would be easier.
Or
Whatever.
just describing it? Or
Yeah, there's 2 handicap spots that have, it's 24/7. My spots for Elite are only during our hours, which are from 10 to 7. So we're only open from 8 to 12 on Saturday, and then anybody can park there. So I do have a picture of that if that would be helpful. It's only during business hours that those 2 spots are just for Elite.
And that's the current situation, and you're asking that the handicap spots that are there be designated just for Elite handicap patients?
That's correct.
And to add another
The
Elite spot, that's
Yeah,
not necessary.
on the other side of that white car, there's basically the 2 handicaps, the 2 spots that we have, and 1 free spot. And the free spot, if we could just have the same thing that's been put to the other ones, would be helpful. Can I show you a picture? Would that be all right?
Well, that's
Oh, the area, yeah. Here, this is better right here.
there. Yeah,
Sorry,
I'm familiar with the
And-
area.
Can she show a picture to the committee members, or does it have to be displayed publicly?
Should be displayed publicly.
Yeah.
Could I email it to me or? Okay, so.
Can we like just get a better understanding of what we're looking at here in terms of what spaces are designated as elite and what ones are handicap?
Yeah, if you want to come here and use the mouse here,
Okay.
so you can just use the mouse and just,
Okay, and then,
I think this is elite, that's elite, this is handicap,
Yep.
handicap, and the fifth one.
yeah,
you
so
want-
there's 2 signs in front on these 2 spots that say Elite PT.
But they're not handicap, they're just elite.
Those are
piece.
just for, see, right there.
Can you email me those? Can you
See how
email
that
those
says
to me?
that? Yeah, okay.
I'll try to pull them up.
Okay, that was a video. And then these are the 2 handicap spots. Oftentimes, our patients will pull in here to unload
Yeah,
their caregivers. I mean, we've had some pretty significant patients. Now that he's deceased, Dave Robinson, who was a spinal cord patient, his caregivers, and he came to us for about 4 or 5 years. And then on the other side of that handicap, they'll pull in if I have a total knee replacement, and they'll walk into the space. And then this is the 5th spot that is not designated, it's a free spot. So it would basically just give me this pad to allow my patients to come in and out. Again, they're there for about 1 hour and 15 to 1 hour and a half.
And the new spot you want designated is not for handicap,
No,
Mark,
it's
but
just
just
like
for,
those other 2, yeah.
just designated for elite parking.
Yep, so that would be these 3, that would be for elite. And only, the ones that are up now say Monday through Friday from 10 to 7 and Saturday from 10 to noon. So anytime outside of that is free for whoever wants to park there. It's just business hours for us.
All right, I will, if you want to just walk around here and show the committee members that, and then you'll email those to me and I'll get them embedded in the agenda.
I've been there. I've attended. Many of us have been there.
So this is what's designated right now for those spots.
right,
And that's all we need it for.
right.
And then we ship everybody earlier in the summer to try to get them in and out. It's been very stressful.
So there's 2 spots that are designated for elite only for during business hours, and there are 2 handicap spots, and then there's a 5th spot in this little strip here, and you're asking for. Could you just clarify again exactly what you're asking for of this committee?
These 2 spots here that are handicapped.
Oh,
Oh, here's a good picture.
you can point over there. Just use the microphone so the public can hear.
Hang on 1 second. I'm just trying to find the handicap spot. Let me just stop it. Okay, here.
Yep, got it.
Okay. So here's the handicap sign that's currently up. Here. So they have, it has the ability to add just another sign below. So here. And here. So I was hoping I could just add Elite PT patients. It should be able to be attached similar to the signs that are already there. We just add that below.
So for the public, we've got spot 1, 2, if you're looking at the mouse, 3, 4, and 5. Spots 1 and 2 are handicapped currently. Spots 3 and 4 are for elite T patients during business hours, and spot 5 is just empty. Correct me if I'm wrong, what Elite PT is asking for is that spots 1 and 2 that are already designated handicap, have an additional sign making it for elite PT patients only during business hours. And spot number 5 also be for elite PT patients during business hours only.
Yes,
Is that
that's
what you're
correct. That's
asking?
perfect.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but you stated that even though they were being designated for your patients, everyone is still paying the meter.
Absolutely. And they get ticketed. And we monitor it, and the guys out there. Sure, sure. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, so they come in and out, and they feed the meter, and they get ticketed if they don't pay.
Okay, does anyone have any questions?
Is on the south side, the very first spot, there's a white vehicle there?
Yep,
Is that a
right here.
handicapped also?
It is not.
It is not. So the only question I would have is, I think you had the same question, Chris, but so if you take all them for elite, is there any other spots if somebody comes up that is handicapped? Or could we make one? Is there room
That would
to put
That
one
would be
there?
lovely, but what we end up seeing, because we were right there all day, is that there's a lot of people, and you can tell they're borrowing a family member's tag out of state typically. It's never really in state, Pennsylvania or New Jersey, and then they park all day for the beach. And then our patients are stuck, and I'm watching them physically carry their coolers and their chairs, because there's not a lot of, there's no change, so it's mostly credit card. And even, we've had many people ask us to use our bathrooms, because there's nothing down there. And we try to be very friendly and we give people directions, but it's just that end of the boardwalk doesn't really support a handicap, what do you call it, tourist with bathrooms. What do they do if they're that handicapped? Where are they gonna go?
Go down to.
They're gonna go half a mile, like by the lifeguard station.
Any other questions for Elite PT?
Do we know, just to follow up, do we know if there are any handicap parking on the south side of the street?
No.
None at all?
There's none.
Okay.
They originally didn't even have they didn't even have handicap there before we were there. So we were the ones that got the handicap parking in there to begin with.
Well, I think their rules are like the city had pressure to create more handicap spots, so I think they have around town created more spots, and I think people are sensitive to losing spots. So I would agree with what Dave was suggesting, is that if the two handicap spots that would be designated for elite, I think we should have at least one handicap spot on the south side of the street, and indicate that.
I think that would be valuable,
Yeah, I
just
think
for the
that would.
community and the people who
Yeah, I
visit.
think we just want in that area.
Okay. Elite, if you want to have a seat up front, just in case there's any other questions, you want to open up for the discussion, Chris?
Yeah, I was just curious about, instead of dedicating the spots to elite for handicap, how about making them for loading and unloading only?
They still need to be treated. Many of them still drive. I mean, many of them pull in and they're cockeyed. They have caregivers, elderly caregivers that are driving and shouldn't be. It's really a need of, I would say, at least 45% of who we see are Medicare, and a lot of them are heavily handicapped.
So a couple of comments just to echo Donna and Dave. I think we cannot eliminate the spots and not replace
Okay.
other handicap spots. I mean, I think we have to be conscious of that there are handicap citizens and visitors to the city of Rehoboth that are going to be using this parking area, and I think we have to accommodate them. I think that could potentially create an issue for the city if we were going to eliminate handicap spaces. So I'm not making a recommendation one way or another about the spots that you're asking for at this point, But I think that needs to be on the table, that we don't eliminate that possibility for other visitors and residents.
And again, I'm so sensitive about handicap
Yeah.
parking. Let me tell you, but the people that I see parking in there,
Yeah,
they'll come, it's a nice day, they have a placard or they have a thing they're borrowing. It's not even them. They're like walking towards the boardwalk or towards Rehoboth Avenue.
I
or-
don't disbelieve you. I've
I
seen
mean,
that
I was
as
just like, it's
well,
so
and I-
frustrating.
and
Like,
I-
if you can walk,
yeah.
you shouldn't be parking here.
yeah.
I don't think anyone disagrees with you, and like with anything, people are going to abuse it. But we have an obligation as a city to make sure
Of
that
course.
And I'm just
handicap
wondering,
parking spots are available.
is it technically okay by the international codes, whatever, that you can take a handicapped spot and designate it for a certain facility? Is that?
I don't know the answer to that. I'd have to look that up.
I just,
I mean, I think that's a good idea to do that. I just wonder if that's consistent with rules.
I think that's a good question that we may not know the answer to.
I also have to just say, like, that, before Elite was there were no handicap spots. So there isn't a need down there. There's no retail, there's no restaurants, there's no, how is a handicapped person, there's no ramp out with the big, friendly sand, what do you call it, wheelchair, right? Like,
Well,
there's the
really,
beach.
but
So-
really, I think you have to think there are a lot of people who qualify for handicapped tags, and they can walk short distances. And, it's just a lot of people who are handicapped but don't look handicapped.
Oh, no, trust
So,
me, I see it all day long, but what I'm just saying is, if you're gonna park there and go to the beach, there's not the beach cruiser to get them on there. Like, if they have a heart issue, it's gonna be difficult for them to navigate to go to the beach in addition to,
I think that I don't think anyone disagrees with you, and certainly no one disbelieves what you physically see with those spots. But
you have rules that you have to
we can't judge who may or may not go to that end of the boardwalk based on what amenities are there. I think we need to have handicap spots available regardless.
Yeah,
So I think
yeah.
that the question is it, there's two questions, I think. Are we even able to dedicate a public handicap spot to a certain business during certain hours?
that's a healthcare provider, Medicare. I'm Medicare certified, so there are parameters that are associated with that certification as well.
And
What's that?
But it is a public spot.
Yeah,
Right.
fair enough.
so I think that's one question we need to have answered by probably our city solicitor. And number two is, if we were to grant your wish if that's available to do, and we were to grant that request, we need to have two more, I think everyone agrees up here, we need to have two more handicap parking spots somewhere in that area.
Well, I have a question and ask if one would be sufficient. That if we added one more on the south side, if that might be sufficient.
That
But,
first spot has plenty of room to come in and out. It's actually a perfect handicap spot.
Or if you think about Elite, when Elite isn't working, there are two handicap spots, two other ones. So I just wonder if we may just have to replace one on the south side.
So just to keep this moving along, I'd like to see if there's any feedback from the city manager or the city public works director before I ask the public if there's any public comment. And there is not, which is perfectly fine.
Ask a question, though, before we get to and maybe the city manager has input on this. I'm just curious, throughout the city of Rehoboth, are there other examples of where we have dedicated public spaces to private businesses? I mean, this is obviously one. Amelia has 2 spaces. She's asking for more. Are there other businesses where we're extending the same courtesy?
I'll follow up if I've got.
I don't have a comprehensive answer, but for sure, we have sold spaces to retail establishments in the,
We have what kind of spaces?
we've we sell them to or lease them to them for the season. Some of these in this parking lot, and I think we might in this parking lot
I have
here
one of
as
those.
well.
I'm
So,
trying to be
right. So I know
proactive.
we
I
do
got
those.
one
I
of
don't, I'm
those.
not aware of any others out and around town that we have that are reserved for a particular business.
We do have, there are some nonprofits that the library has dedicated spaces, the senior center has dedicated spaces, the Chamber of Commerce, Main Street. Those are the only 4 that I can think of.
But a lot of businesses have requested 30-minute spots in front of their storefronts, and they've got 30-minute parking slots.
So Ed,
I think that's right.
rather than making a decision today, can we research this to figure out whether it's legal to do that with a dedicated spot and then physically go out there and look at it? I could go there with Public Works Director and we could figure out if there's room for something else. I mean, so
Yeah,
we
I don't-
could look at it.
I definitely, I don't know that we're going to come to a conclusion today.
Of course, yeah. And just, I would only comment that, again, my business is different. 'cause
Amelia,
I'm a-
if you could just get closer.
My business is different in the fact that it's Medicare certified and I'm providing a healthcare service to the community. So it's not retail, it's not, a restaurant. We have very, specific business hours. So I just hope that that would be considered with the research, is that being Medicare certified, that does kind of change the game a bit. Even though it's public and there's probably rules, and I get that because I follow rules all day long.
So for the record, I have been a patient at Elite. I have seen your clientele, and I understand the need for it. I understand what you're asking for it. It seems legitimate as a request.
I appreciate
So
that.
we have
Thank
to
you.
just
I
kind of-
appreciate your time and you
Yeah,
guys
Run it to ground and make sure we're doing it in a consistent, fair way, and that
I
we're not going to get in
understand.
trouble
No, I
downstream.
understand. We,
Agree.
Yeah.
yep.
And we know how busy it is.
I mean, we took over the Stuart Kingston space just because, the antique,
Yes, yeah.
and it's just people want good health care, and this area has grown so fast, so quickly that we've grown, and it's,
And I just pulled up another example for a doctor's office on Rehoboth Avenue where there is dedicated space.
There is.
Can I ask a question? Because I think if we were to bring this to the mayor and commissioners, they're going to ask the question. Would you be willing to pay a fee for those dedicated spots?
I'll do whatever I need to do. I understand this a business. I get it. Like, I pay $100 a year for the step that's on the sidewalk. So I understand. Life is a business. If I could get something reasonable, similar to the step, I'd be happy to do whatever we need. And then you're still going to make revenue on the.
And so even if we were to grant you any more than the 2 dedicated spots, and you're asking for 5, correct?
Yep. Yes, please.
And are you certain that during the business hours where they're dedicated for you, they're full every day? The meters are being full?
At the moment, like, we've grown 25% in the last 2 years since COVID. I can't keep enough providers. I can't hire enough providers to come down here. And we have like 100 to 110 visits a day that come in and out of there. So yes, there would be no problems in making sure that you guys had revenue from that.
Walter, did you have comments from the public? I'm going to open up to the public now.
Walter Birmingham, 123 Rehoboth Avenue. You put the cart on the wrong end. The steps came up as the original subject many years ago, and there was quite a bit of controversy, and it was basically allowed. I was not a commissioner at the time, not. Walter, can you speak closer? Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
We can.
Part of the problem there was they needed access because of the different level, and it was granted. There was extensive comment about the fact, and the commissioners at the time, there was a subject about putting at least one, I don't remember a second one, on the south side of the street. And then the comment there was you didn't need the people trying to get across the road in different types of mobility, whether it was a wheelchair, et cetera. So that's why the suggestion was to put them on the one side of the street. Not being disrespectful, who gave you the other spaces?
I think it was the city manager at the time, which was Sharon
Well,
Lynn.
this is what part of the problem is, people going out and not codifying these positions, and the signs go up, and the sign man is going to go out and do whatever the administration tells them to do. But without question, the subject was that anybody could use these 2 parking spaces. You did pick up the parking space approximately 3 spaces east of the roundabout on the right, on the eastbound lane on the south side of the street, so people could get out of their vehicles and into the doctor's office that is located there near the roundabout. That met with some controversy, but that's codified. There is something in the law that allows that. And somebody look it up, it's pretty easy because, period. It is a money issue. And probably, I don't know whether it was David or Chris that brought up, probably a loading and unloading zone. So to stop the parking might help. Is the hash mark maybe the entrance to the apartments and/or sprinkler system?
I'm not sure.
It's shown in the picture earlier, but that's got to be left open. But I'm not here to challenge, I'm here to inform that signs go up that are not necessarily legal. And just because it's written there, is it on the wall or is it written on the macadam?
I don't know that anyone knows the answer to that, Walter, but
I'm
we-
just showing the importance of it and the fact of giving tickets and stuff like that. I'm not going to argue whether a person has to pay the meter or whatever, but to give all 5. But the commissioners at the time were adamant that they could not be constricted to the use of I'm going to say your facility. I was in the room. I don't miss many meetings. And probably today, with the marking system that the city has in place, you would know if there was authority for it, and then you need to come back, at the direction of the chair, you would need to come back and bring it back to the commissioners. But definitely the 2 on the north side of the street were intended to be used to be allowed to be used by anyone. And the extras, I don't think, the other 2 or 3, I don't think are probably legal. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. Any other comments from members of the public? Just a reminder, when you come up, just state your name and your relationship to the city.
My name is Patty Brown. I live at One State
Just a
Road.
little bit closer. You can move that if you need to.
I'm Patty Brown. I live at One State Road in Rehoboth. I noticed that where this, your spaces you're talking about, my brother is in a wheelchair, and I took him up there. We parked at the end of the boardwalk. There is a handicap there. We walked down the boardwalk. We saw your parking. We thought we could park there, so I was going to go back and get the truck, and I didn't. But isn't that a space where the fire department and the ambulances need to be going in and out of there?
Not that I mean, there's enough space for there to be,
Not if there's cars on one side and cars on the other.
what are you talking about, the handicap spots?
Yeah.
I think that's all been done legally, like, they came and redid that. It wasn't originally like that. 2 years ago, or when they put those spots in, they reconfirmed that with a ramp and everything, and it was all done legally by the city.
But what I'm saying is that the fire department and ambulances, they've got to get in there to get those people out of there. I mean, you've got people that, you said that are really bad off, right? So,
Orthopedically,
so if you need an ambulance or a fire breaks out and you need the fire department, they've got to be able to get in there, get turned around and everything else, right?
we have had 1 or 2 times that that's happened in the last 10 years, and that's not been an issue.
Okay.
I mean, honestly, this is only an issue July and August. Really, just July and August. Year-round, we are fine.
So Patty, I think to answer your question, at the end of the street, closest to the boardwalk, there is a fire lane that runs the whole width of the
Well,
street.
from what I've seen of the picture, it's not very wide.
Yeah, it's hard to tell from the map, but if it's a fire lane, it's legal and it's proper if the city put it there.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? What about from the committee?
I just have one final one, just so I can get the notes right. The additional spot that you're asking for is not a handicap spot, it's just tagged elite, correct? The 5th one that you're looking for?
Is not tagged.
No,
Anybody can come in and out during the week or day or whatever. So.
But the one you're asking for, the 5th one, for the notes, you're asking for a sign on that?
Tag, yes,
Yeah,
please, the same as the other 2.
That's what I'm just trying to get the notes right.
So spot 1 is a handicap, spot 2 is a handicap. She's asking for each one of those to be tagged for elite PT only during business hours. Spots 3 and 4 are already signed for elite PT only during business hours, and spot 5 is currently empty. She's asking for a 3rd sign for there.
Right, thank you.
Yes,
Summarize that
that's
correctly?
perfect. Yes, thank you very much.
All right, thank you for being here.
I appreciate the time and you guys listening. Thank you so much.
So I guess there's a couple options in moving forward. We could make a determination based on it being okay with the lawyer and the city manager. We can wait and get feedback and look at the legality of tagging a handicap spot for a private business. I mean, where do you guys want to go? We can do some research and come back, or you can make a decision based on,
Well, just from, I don't know the rule. I'd have to do the research. I don't feel comfortable saying we can tag this right now because I don't know the rule. I mean, it can't be that hard to figure out. But I would rather get it right the first time than have to come back and have somebody sue us.
I support the notion we need more research. I think we need research on that. And then I think also, you know, what is the history of designating the current spots for elite?
all right. David, can I task you with sort of taking the lead on this?
Yeah, I can do that. But it would be nice, though, if we either put it to bed in the next meeting. We don't want to drag this on for months on end, right? So we got to look at it, figure it out, and then make a recommendation, right?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Right. And I think we have to, if we can designate the 2 handicap, that's 4 spots that will be designated for elite. That'll be going from 2 to 4 that are designated for them. So, and, so.
There is history in the minutes from when those were previously done. They were done before the Board of Commissioners.
Right. So that'll be part of the research that David would do on getting the background on that. So thank you for being here. And
Appreciate your time and you guys
we'll,
just let me know.
yeah, we'll try to, we'll definitely it'll be on the next agenda for this committee, and we'll have the research and information we need by then.
And I might also be able to reach out to Medicare and find out, like, they're very rule specific, and maybe they have some feedback with regards to this specific situation since we're a healthcare provider.
If you don't mind, I'm just going to defer to David on that, and I'll
Okay.
give him your contact information,
Okay.
and he can contact you if
I know
need
it
be.
already. I've been there.
All right, thank you again.
Very much.
Thank you for letting me change the agenda, but I didn't want to waste her time being here and waiting till the end of the agenda. So back to new business A. It's a discussion update related to Rehoboth Avenue repaving project and related crosswalks in the repaving areas. I think you'll remember at the last meeting, the Public Works Director gave us an update on the repaving, the resurfacing project, and that we may need to make a decision on the crosswalks and whether we just put asphalt right on top of the brick crosswalks with the concrete strips next to them, or we want to retain that look and feel. Even though there was been concerns in the past that those brick sidewalks or crosswalks are pretty hard to see at times. So the city administration had to make some executive decisions on this. So do one of you want to give us an update on sort of where we landed?
Right, so when we were working with DelDOT, scoping out the project, and they wanted to know whether or not we wanted to keep the brick crosswalks as they were. They would not replace them, so as part of the project, so it would be on us to do. And they would rip all those up and just put asphalt down. We made the executive decision after a while that we're just going to leave the brick pavers in place, and they'll just pave kind of between those crosswalks. So that we won't have to rip those up and replace them at another time. So, but I know there had been some discussion, might even be a year or two ago, about the fact that you can't see those as well as you could. But on a lot of them now we have they're either a lot of them now are traffic controlled with lights, and we also have the flashing beacons on several of them on Rehoboth Avenue. So that helps bring the attention to them. So we just decided to leave them in place, and we'll keep them.
Kevin, question on that. So, but when the resurfacing happens, they're going to grind down, and when the new asphalt is put down, it will be flush.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
And
Right,
look
it's a mill and overlay.
exactly like they
Right.
do now, only it's going to look cleaner with the
That's
new.
correct. That's correct.
the new
It'll be
surface.
same elevation at the connections.
Any questions or comments for Kevin or the city manager on this?
Who does the painting once the new pavement's laid down? That'd be part of the project. The state will do the painting?
The striping will be a part of the contract depending upon which part of Rehoboth Avenue it is. So on the state portion of Rehoboth Avenue, the state will be paying. On the city part of Rehoboth Avenue, the city will be paying.
Okay.
But Kevin, just to confirm, it's one contractor doing all of it.
That's correct.
And it's just how the money's being
That's correct. They'll
allocated.
send us a bill for our portion of it after the project.
Which part of Rehoboth Avenue is the city's?
Really?
The first 2 blocks.
Just the first 2 blocks?
Correct.
Okay.
Streets Committee.
Any other questions for Kevin or the city manager?
One quick clarifying question about the proposal that you just described. Will the bricked crosswalk be painted or not?
No, not painted.
Okay, so the brick will, the way it is currently right now, it will stay?
Correct.
And there will be no additional painting in front of it?
So,
either?
it does have that concrete strip.
Yep.
And most of them have the thermoplastic on it now. So we've done several things to those over the last 3 years. Tried paint with the little glass chips in it. We put new thermo down. So it just continues to get, turns dark as the cars drive over it. But they'll be refreshed. I'm not sure whether we'll do thermo or they'll do thermo or whether we'll try paint again or whatever. But, it'll be a nice new clean look for that.
Okay.
So
Just the bricks will be kind of left.
And Kevin, I think you said that the plan, your initial thought and the plan would be that over the next couple years, we take a couple blocks and start redoing those crosswalks.
That's certainly been
ourselves.
talked about, saying that because Rehoboth Avenue's the streetscape was done 16, 17 years ago. It might need a little refreshment. So there was some thought about, developing a program where we would dedicate a certain amount each year and then work on a certain section and just work our way through it. Certainly hasn't gone to the budget stage
So
to try to do that
if-
yet, but
I guess let me ask you another question. If we said, yeah, DelDOT just rip it up, asphalt it, would they pay for putting the piano keys in, or we would still be responsible for paying for the crosswalks?
they would put piano keys in as part of the project. I mean, that's a relatively, it's an insignificant expense in the overall project, so yeah.
Understood.
So you're talking about adding piano keys, suggesting adding piano keys or
Well, that's
either
what,
side of the,
if we said DelDOT, just go ahead, repave, asphalt the entire Rehoboth Avenue, that's what they would do. They would take the bricks, rip the bricks out, and put in the piano keys.
oh, if we asked to have the brick removed.
Well, if we told them to just asphalt the entire thing.
Okay, I pulled up a image of a crosswalk, and I just want to sort of re-ask the question that I just asked before. The bricked area will stay the same, it will be in place, and the paving will happen around it, and then there are currently white painted strips on either side of the brick. Those will be repainted. Is that correct?
Correct. Whether as part of the contract, I'm not entirely sure. But we have, if it's not, we as the city have worked on those over the course of many years of trying those various things to try to bring those to life a little bit. You power washed them one year,
Yeah.
we painted them one year, we put new thermo down one year. So, it's something that we would have to do and continue to do
Okay.
as we're doing now. So it's not, I don't think, extra for the city one way or the other at this point for those particular, lines.
It's just in the
These are the
normal
ones you're talking
course
about, the ones, kind of the borders of the bricks.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the normal course of
Correct.
annual maintenance. Any other questions on this topic?
Well, yeah, I think there's been a concern that those brick crosswalks aren't prominent enough. And here we've gone to the expense of adding electronic flashers at many of the crosswalks there on Rehoboth Avenue. And so I'm fine with leaving the brick and the white strips, but I would add paint on either side of those, on the sides of the white strips, like yellow paint or a modified piano key look, just to make those crosswalks more prominent. I think that could be painted on, that wouldn't be that expensive, and I think that would help make those crosswalks more obvious to people and safer.
And Kevin, just nod if I'm correct. As in the future, we look at a refresh of the Rehoboth Avenue streetscape, we're going to look at things like that, correct?
We certainly can. Yeah, I don't know that would pass any of the traffic regulations with respect to the manual uniform traffic control devices.
Right.
I add another, reflective something before the crosswalk, those kind of things. So those, we'd have to certainly abide by that, but that would be part of the discussion is how we want to do what we want to refresh as we go through that.
Excellent. All right, thank you for the update, Kevin. I'm going to open it
Excuse
up.
me, I have a member of the community called me and talking about doing the updates on Rehoboth Avenue. They also asked if we might not talk to DelDOT or is anything happening at the circle. That's the other big concern on Rehoboth Avenue, about how tight the circle is, how the poor visibility, lots of near misses, and that the crosswalks are so close to the circle itself. So and since they're doing Rehoboth Avenue, that discuss this with DelDOT, the various concerns that have come up about that. If anything's being done about those.
You can go first.
They're just going to resurface it. They're not changing the configuration, making it wider, making it longer or anything else. They're going to resurface the existing at this point.
Has there been a discussion with them about the other concerns or that's been talked about the circle?
If you have a specific concern, I have not spoken them to about
Yeah,
any of your specific
for this
concerns.
project, it is just resurfacing what is existing right
Right.
now. But keep in mind, we are having a traffic safety and parking study done throughout the entire city this summer.
Well, it just seems to not, since it is Del Dot's street there, and that this is their work, you know, and here they're doing a lot of work, we're getting their attention and their focus. I think it'd be an opportunity to raise these issues and put this in their ears so they're thinking about it for future
Yeah,
upgrading.
I know you've brought up the circle many times, and the committee failed to move anything forward, Donna.
I think there remains community concern about it. I mean, we're just talking about a discussion. We're not talking about any major changes. I think this is an important topic for the city, and others have shared that.
The Rossi Group study that is going to happen this summer is going to be fairly extensive. It's going to include surveys with the residents and public. So there's going to be a lot of opportunity for folks to weigh in on specific concerns. So that is forthcoming. Members of the public on this topic, which is just the resurfacing of Rehoboth Avenue.
Walter Birmingham, 123 on Open Avenue. Repaving, resurfacing, rotomilling. Repaving, rotomilling,
Mill and overlay.
pardon?
Mill and overlay.
Mill and overlay is the answer.
So when they get ready to go down the street with a rotomill machine, your crosswalks
Walter, just the
Thank you.
microphone.
likely have a problem. So if you're going to try to leave the crosswalks there and pave over them, you're going to have a problem. And educationally, and I'll keep this short, you never want to redo any. There was a suggestion years ago about putting bricks at the end of Rehoboth Avenue at the boardwalk, and it came up at the time, and we were educated by other people that you don't want a situation where you have a storm come in and beat up on the bricks, and the bricks would become projectiles. So you want Rehoboth Avenue to have continuity of the type of paving so it knits together and knits to the underlayment for it. And to leave the bricks in place at the crosswalks and then pave over them is just wrong. Take them out, fill it up with asphalt, and then let the state come back in under a mass contract and put the crosswalks back in to meet the code that they are currently using. I think would be highly advantageous. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Walter. If there's no other comments, any public comments, I'm going to move on to the next item of business, which is discussion of the discussion related to construction equipment and dumpsters on public streets. Donna, you asked for this to be put on the agenda, so I'll let you start the discussion.
Okay, well, it was discussed in February. They brought it up that, and it was discussed that there is a code, or that when the construction permits are issued, I believe it's they require that the contractors have reflectors on their dumpsters. So, and if you find one that's problematic, you can let building and licensing know. So I did that. I did check out the dumpsters, and at that time, I just went in my neighborhood, and there were 10 dumpsters around within, 3-4 blocks in either direction. And what I saw, 8 out of the 10 dumpsters did not have any kind of reflective material on the back or any cones around it. So I did take pictures of those, and I sent them to city operations to let them know this was a status. And then I didn't hear anything back. And I checked it last week, or last month. I monitored them for 5 to 6 weeks, and I didn't see any real changes, minor changes. So I would say it's a pretty typical problem around town. And then I put in a call to Kevin this week, and Kevin said, well, he did get the pictures that I sent and the addresses of where the problems were, and that he has told building and licensing. And they're working on it, I guess. So, and I have not, I did not see any real improvement. And I guess my question, Kevin, would be when you say, what does working on it entail, or how are they looking at it?
So it's one of the many things that we try to regulate or enforce. Obviously more attention is paid in the business district because you have the bigger trucks, the more volume of traffic and whatever. And to my knowledge and the chief's knowledge, we haven't had an incident where a car ran into a dumpster. So it hasn't been the highest of our priorities to go around and inspect. So I'll just tell you, it's one thing that we put on the condition of the permit to have it either reflective tape or a cone by it. It's just one of the many things that, we try to enforce, and we prioritize where we put our efforts. And we would prioritize our effort on the ones in the business district where there's more volume of traffic and tighter streets. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, well, so that's it. I mean, I'm just one, okay. So I guess residential area gets minimum, is a lower priority.
Well, I don't think there's anything for this committee to recommend because there's already an ordinance in place, other than I'll speak to the city manager and we'll talk about what's in.
It's not an ordinance, it's just a condition on a permit. When they apply for a dumpster permit, one of the things we tell them is make sure it's got reflective tape on it. So.
Is that somehow stated, like if they don't comply with certain things, there's a fine?
I don't know what the enforcement mechanism is.
Well, I feel it's like, and as Kevin was referring to, it's like a lot of things that don't get enforced. And I think it's,
Yeah, I would just ask you if that's the priority, if this committee wants to recommend to the board that we spend more enforcement effort on reflective dumpsters, then we will spend more enforcement effort on reflective dumpsters. Personally, I think we have other things of a higher priority that we want those guys to be out looking at. And if we see one that's sticking out in the street that we think is hazardous, then we would take immediate action and try to get something done. But as far as going around tracking down the guy whose dumpster it is, it's, and it gets hauled away every week or so and replaced with a different one. It's just not, certainly for me, it hadn't reached the level of, I'm going to do this every day to make sure they're all 100%.
Well, I guess what I'm wanting to know is like when they do pay attention to it, or if you're saying it, they don't make a special effort. I mean, if someone makes a complaint, they don't follow it up, or like in the case, I sent a photograph with the address and all that. I mean, it could have been tracked back to who was a construction person, or a phone call or an email could have been sent and said a resident was concerned about it. Would they follow through and mark it, or.
And just in fairness, Kevin, I appreciate you weighing in on this, but this, the enforcement of building and licensing is not in your purview. So I appreciate you helping out and getting involved on this, but I appreciate the fact that this really is not in your purview. Donna, if you would, I'd like to defer this to the next meeting and give me an opportunity to take a look at the permit, what the conditions are,
right.
if there's anything in the city code, and have a discussion with the city manager.
Sure, and I just think as a committee, we should think about this, because here, these are huge dumpsters that are on the streets, and if they're not marked. And when I first became aware of it was in the winter, when it gets dark around here, starting at 4:30 or so. And that's when we have the most dumpsters out. So I think that we're streets and transportation, I think it is a hazard for residents during the winter months. That, I think our committee should have some concern for this.
Right, are you fine tabling it until I
Sure,
can get
sure,
some more
sure.
information, have a discussion? Thank you. Any comments from the other members of the committee? Walter?
Walter Birmingham, 123 Open Avenue. 16th of December, Mr. City Manager, 16th of December, there was a meeting in this room and 4 people stood up from the Homeowners Association, split it up to 3 minutes apiece so they didn't break the 12-minute or the 3-minute rule. And the mayor said, we're going to take these 4 different items, most of which came up about lack of enforcement, and we're going to kick them forward to the new city manager. At 35 Henlopen Avenue today, there is placed probably today a dumpster 16 inches out into the traveled roadway. You have construction going on at Grove Street. The lack of signs down there, there is no detour. There are some barrels put across the street. We have new signs. I'm still on subject. We have variable message boards. There's nothing coming in State Road that says detour to Rehoboth Avenue. Nope, they're not out there. We're not doing a good job. And Kevin just told us we don't consider this important. So the problem was you call building and licensing, you don't get it. If you call building and licensing, and I said something about one yesterday, 151 Columbia Avenue, and it's not reflective paint, it's cones on the corner or something like that. They're not doing anything about it. And just because you haven't had somebody run into it, you have the wide streets and you got all these trucks going up and down it, and the city is not doing their work. Also, you need to be talking about putting the cart in the right place, because you have 2 different times a year, because 15 May to 15 September, you can't have a dumpster out on the shoulder. Who's enforcing it? The police don't do anything. They're Velcroed to the seat of their police cars. Building and licensing, you give them new people, but if they don't go out there and enforce it and they ride up and down the street, why can't they do something about it? They're not doing anything about it. So it's not anything that you can do. It's got to have an attitude that we're going to enforce it.
All right, thank you, Walter. You did reference the meeting in December where the mayor heard the feedback from the homeowners association.
Everybody heard.
Everyone heard.
Not the mayor.
Everyone heard, and I am very confident that the new city manager is getting his feet wet, looking all of the processes, how city staff are being utilized, if additional staffing needs are required. And I know and I'm confident that work is being done, and that, like I said, I want to table this until the next meeting, until I have a chance to sit down with the city manager and discuss this particular issue. But generally speaking, on code enforcement, I can assure you that the message was heard, and that we're working on it.
But
So,
we don't, respectfully, sir, we don't get that report in the city manager's report. They don't say what's happening about the 4 items. I think we got 2 new policemen. We got some help over at building and licensing, maybe some people on the weekend, but that doesn't come back to us. That's downstairs in the city office, and the people need to hear what's happening.
all right, thank you, Walter. Next on the agenda, and item C, discuss the poor conditions of sidewalks throughout the city and the responsibility of repairs. David Mann asked, I think, for this to be put on the agenda. Oh, it was you, okay. Well, there we go.
So I sent the presentation to everyone. Can you pull that up or not? Okay, well, I sent it.
Did you include Ann on it?
I think so.
But it's not embedded in the agenda?
I don't think.
No.
We can table to next month, and then we can pull it up and we can show everybody what we did. Because I went through and took pictures and have a presentation, but I think it'd be better if we put it up next month, but it's up to you.
Well, I can try to pull it off my computer and put it up on there.
It's up to you, however you want to do it.
I'd be fine. You're suggesting you prefer to table it to next month?
I can
when there
talk
be
about
more
it now,
people?
but if we can pull it up, then we pull it up. If not, then I think it would be better if it's pulled up. If not, we just hold it off till next month.
About how long do you think the presentation would be?
Probably 10 minutes at most.
All right, if we could move to item D, which is discussion of shrubs and plants blocking visibility of pedestrian and vehicular movement. Was this a you item?
No, it was not me.
Then
This was
this
not.
one was David.
Right, okay.
Why don't you start giving a preview of item C, the poor condition of sidewalks, why I try to pull this document up on the computer.
Okay, so last month, we just talked about sidewalks either in the residential or the business district that had some issues. There was, there's cracks, there's lifting of the sidewalks, some of them are trip hazards. And I had just suggested that I'd take a look at it, and I would walk around the city, and I would take some pictures just to show what some of the sidewalks look like, as far as safety hazards of people tripping and whatnot. So it's really not, it's better if we pull this up, so I can wait for you to do it if you want.
I have a copy of it. It was sent to all of us on March 3rd at 12:43 p.m. And Edward, I can forward it to you if that would be
I have it,
fastest.
I'm just
Okay.
trying to transfer it to a thumb drive to
Yeah.
move over there.
If you want, we can just wait till next month, and we can embed it again to make sure everybody sees it.
If you're fine
No,
with that.
I'm good with that, yeah.
All right, we'll
Probably
table that to the next meeting as well. And item D, shrubs and plants blocking visibility, I'm going to table that to next month as well. I believe David Mann, who's not had an emergency today, wanted to lead that discussion. Just to let everyone know, just a reminder, the meeting is always the third Thursday at 3 p.m. I'm going to ask if there's any final committee comments or future agenda items. Ms. Womack?
Anytime that there's any documents that you're gonna be reviewing during the meeting, please forward them to me prior to the meeting so I can get them embedded.
Right.
That way the public is also.
Correct. I thought I did that, but if I didn't include you, then I missed.
Well, I've been out for the past 2 weeks.
I sent it, yeah. I'm not sure whether I sent it, I'll go back and look at it. If not, I'll just resend it.
Any other comments or future agenda items before I take comments from the public?
I just have one thing. So the citywide speed, this is just a question that we can do some research or whatever. The citywide speed limit is basically, it's 25. As you come into Rehoboth on State Road, right past the school zone, as you come off of Route 1, it's 30 miles an hour past the school, and as you come around the corner, it doesn't change till 25 until you come around the corner. I'm just wondering, should that be 25? I mean, I know that would be Del Dot, but it doesn't make any sense to me in a school zone, as you're coming into the town, is it 30 miles an hour?
Is that something we need to do research on and get back to the committee?
I would offer to get, the chief of police to come talk about speed limits.
Right, yeah.
Not in my lane.
It's just something I've seen as I've walked around town, and the school zone is generally, and it's marked school zone, and it's faster than it is in the speed of the town. So it doesn't make any sense to me.
We'll get feedback from Chief Banks on that. Speed State Road. And just to share with the committee, the Chief Banks apologized, but he had training this afternoon and wasn't able to make the meeting. Chris, anything
I had a
else?
potential topic, and I'll start with a question. Does the city have rules in place on the management or enforcement of e-bikes, electric bikes? I'm seeing a real proliferation of e-bikes throughout the city, including the boardwalk. And as far as I can tell, it's a safety concern. I mean, you have these bikes are going 35, 45 miles an hour. I know that as a fact because I see them going down my street where we have a nice digital reader, which reads out the speed limit on them. And I'm a little concerned about electric bikes in particular being on the boardwalk.
I think I can confidently say that there's nothing that, we don't have any ordinance that prohibits them or has any conditions on it. But let's have the chief weigh in on that at the next meeting as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Anything else from the committee? Walter? Or any other public comment, non-agenda items public comment. Do you want the reader on?
No, thank you. But when you come in, Walter Birmingham on 23 Rehoboth Avenue. When you come in town and come around the traffic circle and go in front of the Royal Farm Store, one of the subjects you pushed off is about the foliage. And the city's foliage at beside the Royal Farm Store, you can't see. And probably the 10th time I brought it up. And you have Miss Lingo, I don't know who's responsible for it. Those bushes need to be cut down because I have 15 copies of a subject I gave the chairman requesting it for the next regular meeting. But when you first get onto Columbia Avenue and come out of the parking lot that's owned by the city of Rehoboth Beach, that's obstructed by the bushes of the city of Rehoboth Beach, they need to be cut down so a smaller car can see through their windows to see if somebody's coming around the corner behind them. And the first parking spot behind the Royal Farm Store ought to go away. It ought to be blocked out, Jersey barriered or something, because the people start to back out, pickup trucks, people with trailers and everything else. You wouldn't do anything for the goods. You wouldn't go in there and put Jersey barriers and stop the problem that they complained about because it wasn't important enough. It would have been a cheap fix. But I'm asking to have it put on the next agenda. Before you leave, I'll make sure everybody's got a copy of it, and Ann already has a copy of it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Walter. Any other comments from the members of the public? Again, Patty, just state your name and relationship.
My name is Patty Brown. I live at One State Road. And my concern are where I live, turning the Grove Street and State Road, the big trucks. They're turning, and sometimes I think they're going to go over the curb. They're going to turn over. Since Grove Street hasn't been blocked, the school bus has been coming down, then they turn around and they have to back up and then go out again. That's kind of dangerous, but I'm afraid they're going to hit that pole. These are the big trucks, the ones, you know, the ones that go uptown and put the food in the restaurants and stuff like that. It's kind of dangerous there for that.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Patty. Additionally, I've gotten some, and this Public Works Director and I have received some feedback, some residents over the, on 6th Street, 6th, right by 6th. There's 2 parking spots from the, on the west side of the street, from the entrance, right by the entrance of Rise Coffee, asking that those 2 spots are pretty dangerous for both folks making a left from that street there and people speeding around from the traffic circle. So I plan on putting that on a future, or probably the next meeting agenda.
What's pictured there, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, there's
The
two
right
parking
there,
spots there.
On the west side there, Grove.
Right on the other side of that car is the entrance to Rise Coffee.
Yeah, okay.
So I'm familiar with that issue that the residents of Sixth Street have raised, and I echo that. I also echo Patty's comment about the general concerns of safety on Grove Street. I'm a neighbor there, and I've witnessed it, and I think that it would be wise for us as a committee to raise up that topic more broadly, not only to include the parking spots, but just the general safety, traffic flow, traffic management issues on Grove Street. I know we've got a sidewalk going in, and I think that's a good step, but I think there are maybe other broader issues that we need to be cognizant of.
Sure, too. And we, like other topics, I think a lot of this may be included in the study that's going to happen this summer, but I think it warrants us to put it on our agenda to talk about. And I would do it Grove Street from the Circle all the way to State Road, and that intersection there. More broadly, the safety conditions.
Yep, I agree.
Okay. All right, that will be on a future agenda. And
We have one last item, please.
one last thing, just for you, Walter.
Don't make it just for me. Walter Brittingham, 123 Hennepin Avenue. One of the subjects that I mentioned with you and the traffic coordination at Grove Street right now is terrible. They have no detour signs, no nothing. It doesn't meet any test. You can come in State Road and you end up having to go all the way to Rehoboth Avenue, and we should know better. And also today, it wasn't mentioned that right now they're pouring the new curb for the new sidewalk, that it hasn't come up in any report to the people, to my knowledge, or letters in the sand or whatever it is, that you probably have extended a unitary contract with Adel to put that sidewalk in. And the city can do better. You can do so much better. We used to do such a damn good job, and now it's just hope that people don't bitch about it because there is no transparency. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. If there are no other comments by the committee members, I'm going to adjourn the meeting at 4:18 p.m. Thank you.
This piece of paper, the top sheet is a picture of 1 Grove Street that's been drawn by Beacon Engineering, et cetera, merely as a reference.